During the ceremony, the girl has a seizure, but she manages to stop herself in time. Having arrived late for dinner, Jenny lies to her parents that she was at a friend's place, and only her brother Teofy quietly smiles, understanding that his sister is not telling the truth. To change the subject, the guy starts a conversation about the upcoming debates, and Jenny asks permission to attend the event with her brother, but the father firmly refuses, reminding her that it is not befitting a lady to participate in such things. Before bed, the girl goes into the bathroom and has another episode, during which she talks to someone, but Jenny pulls herself together again after noticing her grandmother in the doorway, who is waiting for her granddaughter for their regular evening ritual. In the morning, Teo is getting ready for the debates and finds his sister in his carriage. His father had strictly forbidden her from going. But the girl has no intention of attending the gathering. She only asks her brother to drop her off at the edge of the city, where she can quietly read a book and smoke in secret from her strict parents. The displeased young man, though not thrilled about the idea or his involvement, cannot bring himself to refuse his beloved sister. Having bought a fresh pastry, Jenny goes to a simple cafe, where, puffing on a cigarette, she reads poetry, glancing at a young man at the neighboring table. Noticing this, the stranger strikes up a conversation and lends the girl a book about spirits, leaving a note with his name on the first page and making her promise to meet again so he can get the book back. In the evening, reading the gifted book, Jenny shares her new acquaintance with her brother, and he, resting his head on his sister's lap, listens as she reads. The next day, the family travels to the neighboring estate where Teofy's fiancée lives. This union is very important to the father, and he is extremely displeased when Jenny is sarcastic again, offending the young lady. This causes a conflict within the family. Christmas Eve arrives. Jenny and Teo put up the Christmas tree, and the two climb up to the attic to retrieve the decorations. At this moment, the girl has another episode, and she confesses to Teo that she now sees many different spirits, not just one man as before. Jenny opens up to her brother and asks him not to be frightened, because in the book the young man in the cafe lent her, it says that there are many people like her. Jenny goes again to her grandmother's bedroom to brush and tuck her in for the night, but at some point, the girl drops everything she is doing and begins rummaging through the wardrobe, from which she pulls out a pendant that the elderly woman had lost 40 years ago. When the grandmother asks how she knew about it, the girl confesses that her late grandfather told her. In the morning, the girl is woken by her worried mother, who says that she and the father are going again to the neighboring estate. So, the woman asks her daughter to behave properly and not say anything unnecessary. Noticing tears in her mother's eyes, Jenny thinks it is merely worry over her behavior. So, hugging her mother, the girl, suspecting nothing, gets ready to go. On the way, Jenny notices a travel bag at her father's feet and realizes they are clearly not going for a visit. Looking out the window, the girl does not recognize the road, but upon noticing mentally ill women in a garden, she understands everything. Unfortunately, it turns out it is already too late. The carriage stops at the gates of a psychiatric institution, where the father has brought Jenny after Teofy shared her secret with him. The medical staff immediately took the girl by the arms, paying no attention to her screams, and only Teo could not keep his composure, doubled over beside the carriage because he felt sick. After a moment of hesitation, the head of the family signed the document in which he gave his consent to the forced treatment of his daughter. Head nurse Genevieve examines the new patient Eugenie Ramones and immediately notes that any disobedience here is punishable by solitary confinement. Jeannie enters the common dormitory and is immediately shocked by where she has ended up. Dozens of women, half of whom are behaving in a completely erratic manner, try to immediately touch the young patient. But a girl named Louise comes to her rescue, a girl who clearly has psychological problems. But it seems they were caused here by the local treatment and environment. The patient talks non-stop, telling about her engagement to a young doctor named Jules and about how the clinic holds a costume ball for the wealthy and officials every year. At lunch, Louise introduces the newcomer to the locals, describing each patient in detail. Jenny's first night is very difficult, and she barely sleeps. And in the morning, the girl watches as the head nurse leads Louise away somewhere, and from their conversation, it becomes clear that this is a regular practice. Louise is brought to a large office where dozens of doctors have gathered, among whom is the very same Jules, smiling at the patient in a way that only he can see. The chief physician of the hospital, Dr. Charcot, begins a hypnosis session, and when the girl falls to the floor, he calmly steps over her and bids everyone farewell until the next procedure. The patient is transferred to the medical ward, where she comes to, and Dr. Jules comes to visit her, dismisses the medical staff, and, taking advantage of the girl's naivety, tells her that very soon, at the costume ball, he will propose to her. After that, the doctor slips one hand under the girl's dress and uses his other hand to pleasure himself. Taking a brief, free moment, Geneviève runs home to visit her elderly father and have lunch with him, sharing the latest news from the clinic. Returning to work, Geneviève goes up to visit the new patient, and Janie addresses the nurse on behalf of the blonde, her deceased sister. The woman does not want to hear or believe what the mad woman is saying, ordering her to be quiet. The doctor examines the patients and prescribes Fanny cold water therapy with chunks of ice, which finally breaks the girl. Theo tracks down Geneviève and asks her to help Janie, confessing that he deeply regrets what he did. After thinking for a while, the man asks the nurse to pass the book to the girl. The staff member tells Janie about the package and Theophil's visit, but agrees to hand over the book only on the condition that the girl connect her with her deceased sister and help them speak. One night, Geneviève wakes the patient and brings her to her office, where she intends to witness the ritual. Janie struggles for a long time to make contact with the blonde, but eventually, the deceased comes through and reports that the nurse's father has fallen ill at home in the kitchen. Dropping everything, the woman runs home and indeed finds the man after a seizure. When he asks his daughter how she knew what had happened, Geneviève summons the courage to confess, but receives from her father only criticism and accusations of madness. After another session of hypnotherapy, Louise loses the use of her legs and one half of her body. Seeing this, Jenny can no longer stay silent and tells the doctors everything she thinks about the matter, holding nothing back in her expressions and accusations. For this, the girl is declared dangerous and transferred to a solitary, dark cell in the ward can be run by the stern Julien. Food is passed to the patient through a small slot at the bottom of the door. The only shutter is opened only from time to time. It seems as though all this therapy is aimed only at completely breaking the will of the patients. One day, when Jeanne comes to mock Jenny yet again, the girl tells the warden that she is in contact with her deceased mother and knows all her secrets. For this, the nurse uses physical force and only releases the girl's throat when she is nearly unable to breathe. Geneviève, meanwhile, thinks back on what happened the whole time and, unable to bear it any longer, secretly passes word to the girl that she will help her escape from the clinic. She just needs to hold on a little longer. The nurse convinces Dr. Charcot that the patient has completely lost her will and is no longer dangerous. Afterward, the doctor gives his approval to transfer the girl back to the general ward, where everyone is preparing for the upcoming ball. Eugenie finds Louise in a wheelchair, but the girl has not lost her spirits and still believes in her upcoming marriage and happy future. At night, Eugenie manages to read the note that Geneviève had secretly passed to her during the transfer. Theo receives an equally secret letter with an invitation to the ball. The evening of the ball arrives. Wealthy and influential guests arrive at the clinic, eager to amuse themselves with the mentally ill female patients. Théophile also arrives on the invitation and almost immediately finds his sister, inviting her to dance. Jeanne does not take her eyes off the pair, suspecting them of conspiring with Geneviève. The festivities begin. Some guests openly mock the strange women. Others plan to act out their base fantasies, plying the patients with strong drinks and whispering sweet words in their ears. Taking advantage of the commotion, Geneviève manages to quietly lead Jeannie and Theo to her office and, after dressing the girl in ordinary clothes, heads with them toward the exit. Jules also took advantage of the festivities. Having wheeled Louise's chair away, he brought it to an empty office and, telling the girl that their wedding ceremony was about to take place. Realizing that the paralyzed girl could not resist, the doctor tipped her onto the table, finally achieving what he had long dreamed of. One of the elderly patients who had lived in the clinic for 25 years, for having taken revenge on her husband for his infidelity, burst into the office at the very moment Jules was in full swing doing, well, you understand, but that did not stop the old woman from beating every important part of his body. Jean noticed the disappearance of the patient and her brother and rushed to find them. Spotting the escapees in the corridor, the nurse raised the alarm, but Geneviève managed to lead the pair outside the gates, where a carriage was waiting. The nurse herself remained on the clinic grounds, refusing to flee together with Janie. A year later, Janie writes a letter to her friend, telling her that she is free and happy, lives far from everyone, and no longer hides her abilities, helping those who are in need. Geneviève reads this with a smile, sitting on a bench in the clinic's park, but now she walks this park not as a nurse, but as a patient. Such was the price of Janie's freedom. Friends, thank you for watching. Write in the comments what you think about this film, and please don't forget to support us with likes and subscribe.